What are the different types of CCTV cameras? How to choose them correctly and avoid common mistakes when the selected cameras show poorly or do not have those functions that are necessary at your facility in your video surveillance system. In this video, I will help you understand this issue. I will tell you not only the basic information, but also give useful tips that will help you not to face the problem of lost money when buying a system of CCTV cameras for your object. Also in this video, I will give advice on specific models of CCTV cameras to make it easier for you to make your choice. So let's see what kind of security cameras there are. 1. Dome and cylindrical. Dome put mostly indoors, cylindrical outside. But this is not the rule. If you want, you can put on the street and dome cameras. Look only at its temperature mode of operation, as there are dome cameras that are made exclusively to work in the heat, and there are those that will work in the rain and in the cold. Also, if desired, you can easily put a cylindrical camera for the street indoors. Let's look at the example of the most popular surveillance cameras in the segment IP 8 megapixels with Sony Matrix and 4K resolution. ISON IP80QR is a cylindrical camera. ISON IP80 Siemens SL is the same camera in a dome housing. These cameras are identical in their characteristics. They differ only in their housings. 2. Cameras with a 3.6mm lens, 2.8mm lens, and fisheye cameras. Cameras with a fisheye lens is in 99% of cases a bad idea to buy, as such cameras distort the picture, and at a certain angle the person in the frame is not like himself, which will greatly complicate your identification procedure. The only task under which such cameras are suitable is the observation of an elderly relative. In such a task, you do not care about the quality of filming, and it is important to understand in what part of the room is a person and how much he is active. More such cameras are sometimes put in the ceiling in shopping centers to count visitors and general control of the situation, but such cameras are always duplicated by cameras with a normal lens. The main disadvantage of cameras with a 3.6mm lens is a relatively small viewing angle of 60 to 80 degrees on average, depending on the matrix. The 2.8mm lens is currently the most popular lens. It gives cameras an angle of view of 90 to 120 degrees without distortion, making it the most popular for 95% of applications. We'll talk about varifocal lenses a little later in a separate question. Let's look at an example of recording from a popular HD surveillance camera in the average budget of 5 megapixels with Sony sensor and 2K resolution ISON IP50 Siemens RD. This camera has a 2.8mm lens, which combined with its sensor gives it a 120-degree viewing angle. 3. Cameras without smartphone viewing function. Cameras with such function. Cameras with 3G/4G internet support. Cameras with smartphone viewing function, but supporting not all internet operators. The smartphone viewing function allows you to view video from your surveillance cameras online from your phone. There are also models that have the option to remotely view the archive, as well as listen to the sound, rotate the camera or zoom in, if such functions in the camera are provided. If you do not need this function, then you can choose the first option. If your site does not have wired internet and the internet is distributed through a SIM card, you need the second option. But be sure to look at the description of your system was written to support exactly 3G/4G internet, as a 3G/4G internet special IP addresses, with which not all cameras and recorders work. Well, in the last point we specifically highlighted, because in the budget price segment often meet cameras and recorders that have a function of viewing from a smartphone stated, but to get it in practice we'll have to search for a long time to find an operator with which it will still work. This point is better to clarify and sell us before buying, or choose a manufacturer that works with all telecom operators, such as equipment brand ISON. In order to generally do not really bother in the matter of the internet for their cameras and choose only from options that work with all providers, I recommend you to make a selection through a special configurator, which will automatically pick you out of more than 1,000 different models of exactly what you will fit. You only need to specify what you have an object and what features you need. We have already told you about this configurator in our previous reviews. 4. CCTV cameras without zoom and cameras with zoom. As is clear from the name of the cameras, with zoom has the ability to zoom, that is, zooming objects, Such cameras see many times farther, but cost an average of 30% more expensive. I will also note that cameras with zoom is always much more powerful night shooting, which shines as a rule 2 times farther compared to the same cameras without zoom. Recently, people are more and more often buying cameras with zoom on their objects, and the share of sales of cameras with zoom has already approached the mark of 50%. Human CCTV cameras are 2 types. Mechanical 4-fold is the so-called variofocal lens, from 2.8 to 12 millimeters. Motorized 5-fold, motorized 20-fold, and motorized 36-fold. These are the most popular options. Mechanical zoom can be controlled only on the camera itself with a screwdriver or hexagon. It is convenient only when you need to use the zoom one time during installation. For example, to put the zoom on the front door or along the fence. Motorized or electronic zoom is more universal. It can be controlled remotely from a smartphone, tablet, or computer. As in the previous point, I recommend you to follow the link to the configurator, and you will be offered to choose from 1,000 options simply by answering questions about your object, including the question of whether you need a zoom and what kind of zoom is needed. If in doubt about the choice, click on the button to see all options and consider options with and without zoom. Let's look at the difference between the cameras in the popular 5-megapixel segment with Sony sensors and 2K resolution. ISON at 50 Siemens R is a CCTV camera without zoom with night shooting up to 25 meters. ISON IP50 SAFCW is essentially the same camera with 5x electronic zoom and night shooting up to 40 meters. Also note that cameras with zoom is always 2 times larger than the usual size. ISON IP50 SPDZ PD5 is a camera with 20x zoom and night shooting up to 90 meters, and ISON IP50 SPDZ PD7AI camera with 36x zoom and night shooting up to 120 meters. Also, this camera is rotatable and has a function of automatic human tracking, but we will talk about these cameras a little later. Also, often on different forums you can see the question, how do I understand? Need on my object zoom or not? This is a question of choice on the budget. Who has a budget allows put cameras with zoom, such as popular ready-made CCTV camera systems ISON Alpha Pro X, Covo Pro, Grot, Mulpro Zoom Max. Such cameras see clear and farther. Those whose budget does not allow you to take more budget models such as Greco Pro, Alpha, Blick, Tron Pro, which also have a good picture, but they will need a little more for full protection of the perimeter. Links to all models in this review will be in the description. You can go to them and compare examples of recording. And now let's move on to the rotating cameras. Fixed CCTV cameras and rotating cameras. As is clear from the name, rotating camera can turn left, right, up or down, and they are always controlled electronically from a phone, tablet, computer, or through a recorder. There are cameras that just know how to turn, and there are cameras that know how to do it smartly. For example, in such cameras can be configured towards patrolling when you independently specify points and the camera itself rotates and scans your object in case of detection of a person begins to follow him. Recently we have on our channel was a review of such a camera. It is a model that we have already talked about, ISON IP50 SPDZ PD7AI. It is in fact the coolest camera of existing in this category. Follows the man. Has a 36-fold zoom, the most powerful night illumination, the best matrix Sony, and so on. To put yourself a system of such cameras, very not budgetary task, and can afford it only rich people and rich companies. In more budgetary tasks, people often take, for example, a popular ready-made CCTV camera system ISON Alpha or Alpha Pro X and add one such rotating camera. And thanks to this configuration is achieved a minimum of dead zones and smart protection with tracking of the entire perimeter. 6. The next point is cameras with good matrices, cameras with budget matrices, cameras with unbranded matrices, as well as CCTV cameras with matrices, copies and fakes of matrices of well-known brands. The matrix is what is inside the CCTV camera, and that 90% of the quality of the camera and the longevity of its work depends on. Good matrices for today, as we have told you many times in our reviews, are matrices from companies Sony, SmartSense, and K5 from the manufacturer Huawei. Surveillance cameras with such matrices have high-quality video with good detail on faces and license plates even at medium resolution, and at the maximum resolution of 4K 8 megapixels shoot no worse than the last iPhone. If you take, for example, surveillance camera ISON IP80 SAF MBA, which was also not so long ago we had a review. Budget matrices are manufacturers Omnivision and Fulham. American manufacturer Omnivision could be put in a group with good matrices, but recently the production of these matrices moved completely to China, and the quality of production of these matrices has fallen significantly. Such CCTV cameras have worse quality of filming, and they are worse in terms of reliability, but their price is lower. Such cameras can be put where it is not particularly important clarity and durability. For example, you are building a house, and you temporarily need to put a camera to look at the place there are builders or not. CCTV cameras within branded matrices and cameras with matrices replicas, copies and fakes is 90% of all cameras that are sold on AliExpress. Similar to the previous point, such cameras if you can put somewhere where it is not important clarity and durability. Regarding CCTV cameras with matrix copies and fakes, the situation is a little more complicated. Here there is a risk to pay for the brand, and in fact get or fake. Most of these situations are associated with counterfeit matrices Sony, most of which again comes from artisanal manufacturers AliExpress. Some of these manufacturers openly indicate that it is a copy of Sony matrices, while the company itself, Sony, has not once stated that no replica of the equipment brand Sony does not happen, and it is not covered by anything fakes. In order not to encounter fakes or choose a reputable brand that does not use copies or replicas, such as the brand ISON, or if you choose for yourself some other brand, then read reviews of real users about the quality of video in terms of detail, as well as the real durability of your chosen CCTV cameras. Today there are more than 1,000 brands of video surveillance cameras in the world, and every year there are at least 50 more, so there are no tables of good and bad brands. 7. CCTV cameras by resolution. The higher the resolution of your CCTV camera, the better the quality of the video in terms of detail and recognition of faces and license plates. But it is not by chance that we first voiced to you the options for matrices, because the choice of resolution is a secondary point, and often people make a mistake here. For example, choose a resolution of 8 megapixels, but on a budget, and get worse quality than 2 megapixels on a good matrix. Therefore, it is necessary to consider both these parameters simultaneously, and in this comparison we will talk only about cameras on the same matrices. In particular, we will take Sony matrices as a reference. Under the condition of one sensor and one lens, the parameters will be as follows. 2, 3, 4 megapixels will be budget recording quality, 5 megapixels average, 8 megapixels maximum, 700 TVL, 960H 1 megapixel are long discontinued cameras that have poor video quality. 5 megapixel is by far the most popular format of CCTV cameras. They account for about 40% of all CCTV cameras sold. 8 megapixels is a premium option, the best quality of filming from existing options. They account for about 25% of sales, about 20% of the budget segment of 2, 3, 4 megapixels, and about 15% of the segment removed from production, which are bought or by tenders of those conditions which have not changed for a long time, or bought by people who did not want to understand the characteristics and bought CCTV cameras choosing the lowest price. Be careful in this matter. Again, analyze not only the resolution when choosing a camera, but also the matrix, because to buy a camera with high 2K or 4K resolution does not mean that you have bought a camera with good clarity or detail if there is a bad matrix. I will leave the list of models with real resolution and good sensors in the description. The list will consist of models of ISON brand. It's brand number 1 in the market of professional ready-made video surveillance systems. If you plan to buy any other brand, you can compare as a benchmark. Wired and wireless Wi-Fi cameras. In the classic wired system from the CCTV camera is a cable to the recorder. There he receives power, or from the power supply or from the recorder itself, depending on the model of equipment. In a wireless video surveillance system, there is no cable between the recorder and surveillance cameras, and the data is transmitted via Wi-Fi. Sounds quite convenient, but there are several significant disadvantages of such a connection. I will voice two main disadvantages of wireless CCTV cameras. The first is that at the place of installation should be a socket for the camera, or you need to pull the power cable. The second is the range of signal transmission, which is limited in Wi-Fi cameras. In the budget price segment, Wi-Fi camera will work stably only in close proximity to the recorder or router, and if you start to take it behind the wall, it starts to disappear. In the professional segment, there are more powerful models that work through several walls or up to 150 meters. The most powerful wireless video surveillance system of all that have been in our reviews for 20 years is a ready-made video surveillance system, ISON Pro Max, with cameras ISON IP50 LP, about which we have repeatedly told in our reviews. We will also leave a link to the review in the description. There are also industrial wireless systems on Wi-Fi bridges that can work for kilometers, but they also have their disadvantages. They work seamlessly only in large open areas, quarries, factories, large industrial workshops, and they are very expensive. If you have a classic task to put video surveillance, for example, in a private house, and you will have up to 3 walls between the registrar and cameras, you can put a system-level ISON Pro Max. It will work without problems, and rain and snow signal from these systems also works stably. But if you have an apartment building, for example, wireless video surveillance, there is better not to put. Because in apartment buildings, in addition to walls, there is another obstacle, is a lot of Wi-Fi routers that clog each other and significantly degrade the signal from the cameras. 9. CCTV cameras with WDR technology, with DWDR, without WDR, and fake WDR technology. WDR, or wide dynamic range, is a technology that improves the quality of filming in pool or inappropriate lighting conditions, as well as in situations where the camera lens is exposed to the light of the sun or flashlights. Wherever you put your CCTV cameras, you will have at least a few times a day a situation when the lens is hit by light, or on the contrary, falls shadow. In our reviews, we have repeatedly emphasized to you that buying CCTV cameras without WDR technology is a big risk, because such cameras will show poorly and at the right moment can let you down. DWDR technology is a slightly cheaper version of the usual WDR, most often found in HD video surveillance. Regarding fakes on WDR and DWDR, situation is the same as with fakes for Sony matrices. Unscrupulous manufacturers, in order to cheapen the camera, equip it with their version of this technology, which, with the task of improving the quality of video recording in poor lighting conditions, does not cope. The problem has become so widespread that many conscientious manufacturers began to write in the specifications of their cameras real WDR, that is, real WDR. As in the previous paragraphs, recommend that you make a selection through the configurator at the link in the description. With its help, you can choose from more than 1,000 popular models of ready-made CCTV camera systems, among which there are no variants with fakes as WDR and matrices. On the forums, you can also often find a question from beginners: how much is the technology WDR? The answer here is simple. Nowadays, most of the quality surveillance cameras of quality manufacturers are made with the existing technology real WDR. You do not pay anything extra for it. Just choose a camera quality manufacturer. 10. IP and HD cameras. Let's talk about the pros and cons of both of these formats, and we'll give you our recommendations. IP video surveillance is better in terms of pixel detail and clarity by 20%, but it is also more expensive by the same 20%. HD video surveillance is also quite popular due to the lower price, and now the share of sales of HD video surveillance is about 50%. We recommend choosing IP video surveillance primarily because of the FPS difference. FPS is frames per second. If this parameter is described in simple words, the lower the FPS, the worse will be the video quality if in the frame someone will move quickly or a car will be driving. In 2K and 4K video surveillance, IP significantly wins on the parameter number of frames per second in the HD video surveillance systems. FPS in this format will be at least twice as much. If, for example, compare two identical systems, HD and IP options ISON Greco Pro and ISON Alpha, at first glance they may seem the same, and there 5 megapixels 2K. Both systems have Sony matrices, the same set of features, but FPS at Greco 15 frames per second, and at Alpha 25 frames per second. Video recording with FPS 25 FPS is more pleasant to watch by eye, because it is uninterrupted and smoother, and also such FPS will help if your object will be a fast-moving object. For example, a car or a person will be running. On a small FPS picture will be blurred at a stop frame, and on a good FPS will be good detail, and you can clearly see the person's face or license plate number. It is usually accepted in favor of IP video surveillance to tell that there are opportunities for deep analytics, server connection, fiber optic cable connection for kilometers, but 95% of users do not need this and just need good video surveillance with a good picture, motion sensors, viewing from a smartphone, and simple operation, and this is now in both of these formats. About 10 years ago, there was a situation that IP video surveillance was more difficult to connect because it was necessary to prescribe IP addresses on each camera. But then there are ready-made sets of video surveillance brand ISON with auto start function that became connected as well as HD. That is, now it is enough to simply connect the camera to the recorder and everything else happens automatically. Another advantage of IP video surveillance is that you can connect up to 600 meters and HD only up to 100 meters. Once again, I will note that we tested cameras and recorder ISON on the original cable ISON. If you buy another brand, these figures may be different. Most manufacturers have about 80 meters of length on IP video surveillance and about 100 meters on HD, i.e. this advantage can be and the other way. There are manufacturers of CCTV systems that write that HD CCTV cameras will work at a cable length of 300 meters, but HD CCTV cameras at such distances will be in terrible quality and in black and white mode, in which any HD CCTV camera will go automatically at a cable length of more than 100 meters. We recommend that you, when choosing, to consider equally and HD CCTV cameras and IP, and choose by example of recording, because the purchase of a more expensive option will certainly solve most problems, but not everyone has such a financial opportunity. In conclusion, I will tell you about another myth that is still discussed on forums, that the function of viewing from a smartphone is supposedly only on IP video surveillance. So really was about 15 years ago. Now it is in HD video surveillance, and in general the functions of HD video surveillance is not inferior to the IP standard. Well, and certainly the main points on the cable. IP video surveillance is a twisted pair cable. HD video surveillance is a coaxial cable. Connect HD cameras on twisted pair cable if you want. You can use UDP balance, but IP cameras on coaxial cable you will not connect. We have sorted out all the main types of CCTV cameras. Of course, you can continue and sort out the difference of rare 20mm varifocal lenses or the difference of processors or different light sensitivity. But in most cases you will be more than enough knowledge that you got from this video in order to make the right choice of CCTV camera system for your object. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new videos.